Hello and welcome to First Geek 411 Book Club. Before we get started, you can find us at all the socials as One Geek 411. Come chat with us at our Discord server or shoot us an email at 1stgeek411 at gmail.com. Check out the show notes on our website, onegeek411.com, and watch us live on Twitch every Monday night at 6:45 Mountain Time, and find the videos on our YouTube. Rate and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts, and check out our Redbubble store for some sweet, sweet merch. I'm Shanine, and with me I have Cameron.
Hello, hello.
Hello.
How's it going?
And Chris.
Good. I am well.
He's a snake.
A snake.
A snake. For the audio listeners, Chris is wearing a hood, so he looks kind of like a cobra. I feel like I should explain that joke.
Okay.
Already derailed. Sorry, Shanine.
Speaking of reptiles.
Good segue.
Tonight we're talking about Seraphina by Rachel Hartman. In a land where humans and dragons live out a tenuous peace due to the treaty brokered 40 years ago, tensions between them remain high. Dragons are able to change into human form, but with their analytical, logical minds, have trouble fully understanding humans and their emotions. Seraphina, a musically talented young woman, is caught between these two worlds. She works at court and gets caught up in the investigation of a royal murder and the uncovering of a draconian plot to destroy the peace.
Destroy it.
So,
Peace is a
y'all
lie.
think? I mean, maybe. First impressions?
I really like this book. I think I talked about it last month, since this is one that I had brought up for us doing. But Deanna and I had started doing the audiobook for this, and we hadn't finished, and I was looking to go through and finish. I really like the take on dragons in this book. I like that they still feel like dragons, but also don't feel like every other incarnation of dragons. And so I think it's a very fun take. So
They feel more like D&D dragons. In a sense. I enjoyed it for the most part. It's not what I was expecting for like a fantasy book. Being more on that like intrigue, mystery side of things.
mm-hmm.
But yeah, I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
One thing I didn't care for is the forbidden love trope.
Oh,
Man.
yeah.
Lost
I could
me
also
there.
have done without that.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
Is this going to be like the final chapter of Ready Player 2? We just go deep in one part, and that's the book club.
Don't get me started. Okay. Emma could not be with us tonight, but she sent us some of her thoughts. Her first impressions were that she didn't love it, but also didn't hate it. She's rather neutral, wouldn't have read it of her own accord, but it was a nice read and fun and unique. Yeah. I actually quite liked it. I think it was a bit slow getting started, but it was still interesting enough for me to continue.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I quite liked it by the end.
Yeah. I'll touch on this a bit more later on. But it's one of those that like reading, just because like we all have our thoughts in our head, but I get to see Emma's on page. And so like reading through what she wrote, I'm like, oh, I 100% agree with all of this. But I feel like I liked it. I liked a lot of those things more, even though I think that's 100% right. Like, and we'll get more into the specifics of that. But so I'm going to just tease that for future questions. But yeah, I think I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. Okay, so Cameron, you mentioned that you've started this book before. I think it was a new read for the rest of us, though.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Cameron, did you remember much from the story going in? Was it different
I
getting
think
at it a second time?
Yeah, I definitely think I noticed things a lot more, although we had listened to this on a trip to Colorado. And I think we listened to about the first like 10, 15 chapters, so about the first half. Um, and we must have stopped for the night or done something partway through because there was like the twist, the first twist. I was like, oh, that was way earlier than I remembered it being. And so I feel like it just must have been something where we'd like listen to like the first 2 chapters or something like that and then stop for some reason. And so like my time frame was definitely off. But in general, I think for the part that we went through, there's definitely is like I at least remember the major plot beats.
Have you read other books like this? I think it was very unique as
Yeah.
far as fantasy goes.
Yeah, I can't say I've like really read a fantasy that is almost exclusively a mystery.
Yeah. Because I gotta say, this feel for a world with dragons and knights. This does not feel like a story about dragons and knights. Like
Mm-hmm.
it definitely feels very unique in that regard. Um,
Yeah. Okay, what was your favorite part?
Is it? I don't know. I really liked Lars's introduction. Is it Lars?
Mm-hmm.
And his big drums?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like just the chaos in that scene. I just,
mhm.
just seemed like a lot of fun and a good introduction for a character.
I really liked. Is it the blue room? Um,
Oh yeah. Princess Glazelda's parties.
yes, I really liked that. I think that that was a good. It was. It's funny to see Seraphina in very much not her element. And I think that it was also fun to see her in that like um, us as an audience knowing that the reason a lot of her personality is the way that she is because she's plot twist a half dragon and like has to hide that because half dragon um and like kind of getting to see her have to try to balance that and now also trying to like almost like broker peace in this party between all the people involved. I think it was like it's a really interesting like encapsulation, there we go, of the story, and kind of the just the general politics of what's going on. And so I really liked that part for like kind of just what it represented for the world.
Yeah. I don't know if I had like a single favorite part. I really liked kind of her mind garden
Mm-hmm. I like that as well.
with her grotesques that, spoiler alert, turn out to not just be figments of her mind.
Mm-hmm.
What?
Yep, I really liked that too. Like that was one of those like plot building things where Orma is like, "Oh, well, this is relatively normal for dragons, and yours is just weird." And then we find out it's because of like all of her connections to all of these other half dragons, and I'm like, "Oh, that was a cool take on that." Like planting the plot seed early, and then we've come to find out more of what it means later on in the book.
Yeah. All right. Did you have a least favorite part?
I really feel like I need to take notes as
right?
we go through these, because it's like, did I have a least favorite part?
I mean, this is where we can go off
Yeah.
about the forbidden romance.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much at it. Like that one. Was it 37?
Yeah. And I'll say kind of with that, I think a lot of the book kind of just felt like very much like setting up a sequel, like towards the end. And that was kind of one of the things. It felt, I don't know if rushed is the right word, but it definitely felt like there's this long mystery build up, and then it's like, oh, and it's this, and we're done, and like fight scene, and forbidden love, and all these things. And so, yeah, so I'd say in general, I guess I liked the ending, but I did not like the ending. If that makes sense.
That's fair. They did take their time getting there, but then just kind of like a couple chapters, and they're like, and there we go.
I mean, it's like a episode of Scooby Doo. You have 24 minutes of the mystery and then a minute of the solution. I feel like that's pretty typical of mysteries in general, or at least good mysteries. It keeps you encapsulated. You're trying to figure it out, and then gives you all that time to try to figure it out without like revealing too much. And then, well, if you haven't figured it out, this is what's happening.
Yeah. Yeah, I think my real one complaint was the forbidden romance. Like, it was being hinted at the whole time, and I'm like, don't do it. Just don't do it. I think what made me the most upset about it was that Princess Glazelda was like my favorite.
Right? I love her character so much.
I'm like, I just want her to be happy.
Like this is not good. And I one thing I also really like is Seraphina's relationship with Glazelda.
Yes.
I'm like, this is how you mess everything up.
And I'll say even there, I liked the relationship with Kiggs. Like, not the romantic side of it, but I loved their like mental sparring.
Yeah, like it totally could have been a saucy friendship without. Yeah, I felt like the romance was unnecessary and just kind of shoved in there because it was young adult.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Like, it's like we need a love interest, so forbidden love, it works. Okay. Yeah. It's like, fine, whatever. You suck.
Yeah. It very much felt like to go off that idea, like of the like, well, we're going to have we're going to try to get this pitched as a Netflix series or whatever, and we need to have something for the youths.
For the youths.
Gotta get them.
I mean, modeling just good relationships isn't enough.
Not when it comes to making money, Chris.
That does not interest the youths.
Dragons apparently aren't enough.
No.
Oh, how youths have changed. Someone says dragon, I'm all over it.
Yeah. I mean, I did like a writing seminar for young adult fantasy, and yeah, I think the boys are more targeted with like the adventure part of it, and then the girls are targeted with the romance. That's kind of just how it goes, and you need both for it to be a successful young adult novel.
I mean, you have so many other ways to approach relationships in this kind of in this world. So I mean, it's mostly this weird forbidden romance that I have a problem with. And then like you definitely could have had like a more developed and more natural relationship somewhere. Instead, you're gonna throw the fiance of the princess in the mix. Come on.
I was not happy about that. I expected better from Kiggs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm also not a fan of the like within that trope. I'm not a fan of the like, here's this guy that the girl really likes, but he's in a relationship that he can't end. So like I'm definitely not into that trope. And yeah.
Yeah.
I especially don't like it because like the implications, especially in high political things, is that, Griselda's working or doing her best here, and you could like this discovery can probably set everything off.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't think this through at all.
Classic youths.
Yep. But anyways, speaking of Glazelda, who is your favorite character?
It's definitely Glazelda.
Right? I adored her just the whole time.
Like I just can't find any fault with her necessarily. Like she's brilliant. Although like unknowing and in like a unknowing way. She she's curious, and her approaches, like even like at the end when she kind of takes the throne, like you really begin to see her shine. And as a friend to Seraphina, she's always just kind of looking out for us. Like this is technically someone that's technically your servant.
Mm-hmm.
And the way she treats those below her is awesome for what this time period would typically probably look like. And so yeah, I love her. Which that's why I hate that for me. That's probably especially one reason why I really hate that romance aspect. I'm just like, yeah, just screw over the most likable character in this. Good job.
I know, right? She's definitely the most genuine character. Like, she's just very real and fun and joyful, but also very smart and just, yeah, she's wonderful.
And like how much of Seraphina's like character development is because of Glazelda.
Yeah.
So I really liked Glazelda as well, but I'll say Orma is my favorite. Part of that is I think that he has a lot of like the comic relief of like, it's almost like that serious character that doesn't realize how funny they're being, that kind of thing. And so I liked a lot of that. I also really liked his relationship with Seraphina. And that kind of, I don't know if begrudging is the right word, but his loving Seraphina and his love for Lynn, Seraphina's mother, like, and kind of all of that tied in with this like being like forced to grow out of what is normal, that kind of thing. And then I really I liked a lot of the things that would come up, which was with his I don't know if like knowledge of the world is the right thing, but just his kind of getting to be the fun exposition kind of thing. And especially once, we got to see him do dragon things and that kind of stuff. So I know that was some of like the moments that I was really excited about, was when like towards the end, when they've met Imlin and call like Orma out to like, hey, like things are happening. And like, but yeah, so I really liked Orma's like wit. I don't know if because he's not actually witty, but but his wit.
He's got some crazy political jukes though.
Yeah, he does.
Like probably like part of it, like, but like he's obviously experiencing the emotions he's not supposed to, within dragonkind, but at the same time he doesn't care that he's learning to appreciate those emotions. but still also approaching them logically and rationally to the point that he can maintain and protect at the same time, maintain his status, and not give himself away. Like,
yeah, that makes me think maybe part of why I liked Orma is that he kind of has that double agent trope.
Yeah.
I didn't think of that.
Yeah, just like even, obviously Seraphina wasn't telling anyone a lot about that, but like the censors when they try to throw her off the building, you're just like, yeah, whatever. While probably like realistically actually feeling a little bit of panic, but knowing that that's not the solution.
Any least favorite characters?
I mean, what did they do to my boy Kiggs? But we already talked about that. Yeah.
I don't think a lot of characters were developed well enough for me to really truly dislike them. Or where I might have some dislike is mostly because, well, that's the role of the story.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm running through characters in my head and I'm like, ooh, that one. Oh yeah, they were the villain.
Yeah.
They're supposed you're not supposed to like them, kind of situation, or they, obviously they have to play kind of some minor characters. They have to play the political adversary to the piece, nonetheless, or the dissenting. They are part of the dissenting voice. And like, I can't just dislike them because of their opinion, because a lot of the opinions that were developed in this are like, they're reasonable based on their experiences and everything. So it's understandable how they ended up where they were.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of which, there's the Earl of Apsig, and like, he was not likable. He was the one that was like connected to Lars and just like super horrible and stuff.
Especially right there at the end.
Yeah, but in the end,
you kind of get his story.
Exactly. Like, I was going to say, like, you see that he has his own struggles and that he's complex as a character. There's more going on than just like he's rude.
Yeah, he killed his father. It's like, wait, what?
Yep.
No, I didn't get him to back down. What are you talking about? I killed him. Like, dang, son. Okay. Okay. I see you.
Yeah, I guess kind of same for me. Like I mean, like, I'm on like the wiki, and like even like looking at the characters there's really only like 20 characters in the book. Like, there's not like a large cast, which I think is fine. But yeah, like I can't really think of a character that I disliked that I felt I was supposed to like. Like, even with like the final reveal, it's like, oh well, cool, because that person was a jerk. Yeah. Like, makes sense. Like like stuff like that. So yeah.
I mean, there were I can't remember Seraphina gets stabbed in this, right?
Yep.
The two that stabbed her, the
right,
that set her up.
Yeah. One of which is Karangi. So who is Imlin. So it's like, well, yep.
But I mean,
they're the worst.
Right.
And so I guess like that was one that, like, at that point it's like, oh, you're just an awful person, and it's like, oh wait, oh, you are an awful.
Yep.
Well,
exactly.
Awful dragon, but like.
Yep.
what did we think of Seraphina as a character and as a narrator?
She's Spock. In a sense. I mean, like, just that half and half. Although probably like Spock if he's raised by humans more so. She's definitely more in touch with with the emotional aspects.
Mm-hmm.
You know, every step of the way throughout the story, like I'm not sure. I mean, as a narrator, I think should fine because she gets to provide the context.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it did a really good job for explaining her actions.
Mm-hmm.
So like every step of the way, there's outside of the forbidden love thing. I was just like, I understand that decision. I don't blame you.
Mm-hmm.
I get it.
Yeah. I never found myself doing the stuff that happened with Ready Player One and Ready Player Two, where it's like, Wade, why are you doing the things? Like there was never any of those moments. Like, even when
it is ultimately a bad decision, it's just it's more understandable. It's like everything, like in that situation, yeah, I'd probably make the same bad decision.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And like just her like at 16 having to navigate and like hide yourself, she did such a good job, and then suddenly she's put in really bad situations where she might get discovered.
Yeah,
it's like it'd be exhausting.
That's one of the things that I found really interesting is that like because there are the scenes like where she goes to interrogate the knights and stuff like that, where you very much see that like inquisitor dragon side of her, and it's like there is now the hoard that I must obtain, and the hoard is knowledge, that kind of thing. And like she just can't handle waiting. She must dive into the mystery, that kind of thing. And I think I really liked that side of it. And again, like even again to what Chris said, when those end up not being the best choices, it definitely makes a lot of sense for why she did them. Yeah, I definitely would not have gone out on the trip with Kiggs, but I understand why she did. But
okay, so the trip with Kiggs, where she just like bullheadedly, yeah, I've done this before, sure. Never ridden a horse, gets on it and rides for all day, pretty much. I love her stubbornness at the same time.
Yeah,
just like, okay, you got this.
I believe.
Yeah, I don't think I have much to add about Seraphina. I think for her character being so built on lying,
Mm-hmm.
she seemed to be a very honest narrator.
Mm-hmm.
It's like her. I think the intention of the lie is a big part of that.
Yeah, because she's not a dishonest person.
Yeah, she's not doing it to be deceitful.
But
she's doing it out of like self-preservation, more so, and like every opportunity she can, she includes as much truth as possible while withholding. It's more so like the lie of omission. You know, it's like I'm just withholding some things because, well, you'd kill me if you knew.
Yeah.
Right. If you could hear these stories from another point of view, whose would you choose?
Just because it's a relationship that's not fully developed, her dad. Because he's obviously a really intelligent person or human, for one, having like really in-depth knowledge and like obviously, you know, I mean, he's obviously experiencing some sense of betrayals here with Seraphina's mom upon the discoveries and things like that. I think his take, granted, not maybe for this specific portion of the story, but also just, you know, still trying to be a dad to Seraphina. I wish that would have been either better developed in this, or because a lot of like we see him kind of at the beginning and in these big political scenes, social scenes, but not really otherwise. We only see him pretty much with the handoff to her teachers, her tutors, and everything like that, and we don't really see much of him after that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I'll say kind of overall, I'm glad that we had Seraphina as the narrator through the whole book, but there are definitely like once the mystery is revealed, I would really like to have known more about what Emlyn was up to. Like almost as that like the rewind through and getting to see, okay, well, here is how over the last, I don't know, 13 years, however many years he's been exiled. Here is how he has actually been like manipulating things behind the scenes and how he came to be in the high court and stuff like that. I definitely would have liked to have seen more of that. I don't know. Again, I don't know when that would have happened, but like plot wise, but that's definitely something I'd be very interested to hear as like a prequel style thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of thinking Glazelda just because I want more Glazelda.
Like me too. I want more Glazelda, but at the same time, like at least her role in this story, like, is just now picking up kind of as she takes, whereas she, I'm not. Maybe she does more with her in her free time, but she's still like that young princess that's pretty much sheltered. I'm not sure she's doing much outside of when Seraphina comes to teach her harpsichord or whatever it is.
Yeah. Just getting manipulated by Lady Karangi and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I could handle a whole book from Glazelda's point of view. At least with like as she's presented. Story. Yeah. I could see, again, like almost as the opposite of what I just said. I could see a future to what you're saying of her ruling. And now what does this look like as she tries to navigate this peace or this lack of peace now, I guess, and get her people through. But yeah, I definitely don't think I could have handled this time frame with her.
I think also maybe like time frame wise, I think Glazelda would be a great, like, in retrospect, let me tell you the story of Seraphina.
Yeah.
Like, this is how we met. This is, and like because I think she's ultimately, obviously we don't know what their relationship's going to look like in the future, but I mean, if it's a good relationship throughout the rest of the series or anything like that, it'd be a good retrospective aspect. Let me tell you about my friend here. And like you should like to interject and kind of give that, like, I don't know, third person more so. And like interjecting, well, I only know this because I was told, but because she confided in me at this time, I think that'd be an interesting perspective.
All right. Did you find the world and characters believable?
Not enough squids.
Not enough math. You guys sold me on dragon math.
I think I was looking up like the description of the book when Cameron suggested it, and it made it seem like they were doing math just all of the time. And I'm like, I'm gonna hate this book. And then there was not nearly as much math.
There was like no math.
The description I read led me to believe.
There were mathematicians.
Yes. And there's a very mathematical way of approaching things. But yeah, there's not like and even like with Clyde, Seraphina's dad, there's not like it almost sets up like there's gonna be a lot of legal stuff going on.
Yeah, more so than that.
Nope, not really. just
really.
Kind of like he just happens to be a lawyer. Doesn't really ever come up until the very end. But yeah, I feel like this is kind of like some of the other books that we've read where like the answer is no, but like within its own mythology, like nothing seemed out of place. Or the things like the twists with the garden and things like that all seemed, while new to the world, didn't seem preposterous.
Yeah, like I think like we said before, like it's very unique, and I enjoyed that about it.
I think it would have made a better video game. Maybe. I don't know.
There's not really a lot of like
nice solid sim RPG.
Yeah. I was thinking like point and click adventure. Like, or think like Telltale style, like they're Walking Dead, that kind of thing. Like,
I don't know. I'm almost thinking like you could have like an aspect almost like Dragon Age, you know, where because you're making decisions as the main character or something, seeing how it unfolds,
and doing a lot more math.
And to make your decisions, you have to solve math equations.
Yeah, if you get the question right, like it's actually one of those like educational games. It's like if you get the question right, you say the good answer. If you get the question wrong, you're found out and
start over. But yeah, I think this world is pretty well developed. You know, you have what 3 pretty distinct political, human political parties. Right, you have Gared, the Semitists, and Ninnis. Is that the third? And then obviously you have the dragon factions.
Mm-hmm. I'll say with that, the world did feel kind of small. Like we get like talks of, especially because we're in like the capital or whatever, so we get talks of all these other places. But since we as like an audience never really go anywhere aside from like Seraphina's flashbacks of her mom, like we never really go more than a day away from the city.
Just to the cave of the banished knights.
Yeah. So I guess kind of just because of that, like the world definitely did feel small. It seemed like there's a lot there, but a lot of it feels far away. I guess if that makes sense. Like even at the end with the dragon rebellion that takes place, like it's like, well, that just feels like super distant because like we don't actually know like how close is their kingdom to where we are. Like, is this like what is the actual degree of this as like an imminent threat? Or is it just like, oh, it would take them weeks to fly here? I don't know.
Yeah. So Emma has some thoughts about world building. She says, overall better writing style than Ready Player 1 and 2.
Mm-hmm.
but
Amen.
also felt like the writer often under-explained things to the detriment of world building and character development. For example, the whole saints' belief system confused her. There's a big emphasis on all these patron saints, but what did they even believe in when they were alive? Read as a very confused Catholic going, "You can't have saints without a god." They seem to be a big part of the culture within the book, but detail felt a bit too surface level, even if the author wanted some amount of mystery behind them.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, I kind of loved the saints' belief system.
Yep.
I don't know. I thought it was unique, again, for a fantasy setting. Like, usually you get, like, I don't know, these, like, distant gods and, like,
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that. But having kind of more structured, but still kind of mysterious beliefs.
Yeah.
Well, I
I
think.
really liked. Oh, go ahead, Chris.
Oh, I was gonna say like there is the part where like Seraphina uses the saints as an excuse, right? And like
Mm-hmm.
what saint and but also she includes a little bit like that it's like a misunderstood saint almost in her explanation, and I really like that you know it's like a foolish saint, like he's considered to be the foolish saint or whatever, but I think that's completely misunderstood, and like in giving this like more in-depth like history of them a little bit, just a little snippet. But I mean like in general like that, I mean maybe the author didn't feel like they needed to include much because it's just wrapped in that kind of the same kind of mystery that those looking from the outside in, even within Catholic saints, that in our own culture has, that everyone may have their own personal connection to that saint, and not even for the reason that they are the patron saint of whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'll say like this. So this is one of the things I was alluding to earlier. Where like I 100% agree with Emma here, but I really liked. Like I liked that there didn't feel like there had to be a chapter where they explained the religion to me.
Yeah, author's not Tolkien.
Yeah, and like especially like I mean, coming off of Ready Player 2 and several months ago doing Treasure Island, where like there were just parts of both of those books that just felt like this is a chapter to have a chapter. And so like I definitely agree that there was a lot of those parts that seemed very underdeveloped, but at the same time, I didn't feel like I had to have that as much as it was definitely a would have been nice to have. It felt like it left me wanting to learn more about the world. Maybe that's another way to say it, versus like shoving all the detail down my throat. Treasure Island.
Well, and it's also one of those things that's also one of the limitations of the first person narrator,
mm-hmm.
In terms of writing, that you can't. Seraphina is not going to be all knowing.
Mm-hmm.
So we are only going to know of the saints based on Seraphina's experiences with them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think coming a bit from a writer's perspective as well, it's like she explained enough that we like understood its impact on the story. We don't know everything about it, but we know enough about it.
Mm-hmm.
Like we saw how it affected people and their culture, having, what was it, the Saints of Ogdo,
mm-hmm.
who were like super anti-dragon, like militantly anti-dragon, and how that kind of formed them and affected the culture as a whole. Things like that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. The saint system felt almost a bit like Hogwarts sorting house than like
yes, that was very
saints.
much the impression that I got as well. Of like, it felt very much, especially with how Kiggs approaches it, and so like that's kind of our other portal into it is through him, and he seems to almost view it as that personality test.
Mm-hmm.
If it's like, oh, you're inquisitive, So you're a patron saint, must be this person. And so I thought that was an interesting application of the belief system. And of course, again, we don't know much about the actual belief system, but it definitely seemed like an interesting like way of bringing that out as someone who like, and if Emma's here, she might have a much bigger insight into like the Catholic side of it. But like, as someone who is like not from that background, like I don't really know how Catholics approach those saints and those kinds of things, and that's not something that we have in my faith background. And so I thought that it was definitely interesting.
Okay, Emma also has some thoughts on the dragons. She said, really enjoyed the reimagining of dragons as being Vulcan like shapeshifters with a limited range of options for shifting. It was a different take on a classic fictional animal. Overall, she doesn't think it would incorporate the shapeshifting aspect into the general mythology of dragons just because it doesn't fit their general vibe, but she likes how the author used that ability to carry the story along.
Mm-hmm.
Any other thoughts on the dragons?
I feel like dragon shape. I was thinking about this because Deanna and I were talking about it. And I think it's really interesting that dragons, like 20% of the time, have this super random shape shifting power. Like it's not in a ton of dragon stories, but it's definitely like consistently in some. And it just seems like one of those like really interesting things that just like kind of pops up from time to time, and almost as the almost as like the contextualizing that power as like the surprise, in this world they can do this thing that sometimes they can do, like thinking like The Witcher and things like that, even Magic the Gathering, where we can have shape-shifting dragons. Like it definitely feels like it's one of those tropes that like gets played off of from the like, will it take place here? And I liked that idea. I liked how, I mean, just completely agree with everything Emma said. I really liked how it tied into the plot, both as the like there are the dragons that people know about that have to wear the bells. Then there's the ones that are undercover that people don't know about, and then how that ties into the later plot with Emlyn. And I think that that's a very interesting like way of taking that espionage side of it that like we don't really in chat. Ross says everyone take a drink. Cameron mentioned Magic the Gathering. And I really think that that's just like an interesting way of taking the dragons in a world where for the most part it seems like all the dragons that we see like what's going on. Like they're not necessarily like all on board with it, especially with how the humans treat them, but in general they seem very focused on preserving the peace. And so I liked that idea and that connection with it being like up except for this one. And so I really liked that. And I like the take on it. I mean, it's pretty like bluntly stated later on in the book, and I referenced it earlier, but the idea that of dragons like realizing like we can have all these hoards of gold, but what if the real hoard was the friends we made along the way, was knowledge and learning and understanding things that they knew they couldn't understand on their own. And so they developed this magic to become human. They signed this peace treaty. And I really liked that take on dragons as almost like cats, like where they're just super curious.
So How to Train Your Dragon. No, I'm just
so How to Train Your Dragon. You know, I also do really like How to Train Your Dragon. So
I think a lot of that comes from where you pull kind of your dragon mythology from. So you can kind of tell like a lot of like more modern dragon takes the sentient kind of wise being. You know, that's definitely probably more of an Eastern take on dragons. But we also do see it, and obviously like in Dungeons and Dragons, dragons, but we get the two facets. Whereas, if you just exclusively look at like a European centric take on the mythology of dragons, like Tolkien's works, or anything, they're a corrupted being, hoarders, intelligent, but like they are ultimately corrupted, used for evil. And then we see like that transition a little bit, but I think just depends on where you are pulling your mythology from and like what you're trying to incorporate. Because in D&D we see shape-shifting dragons, and I like that at one of the Glazelda's party, like she interjects and mentions that it's like this piece is here because they're curious, kind of situation. It's like it's like they're trying to figure out music. Like like if we weren't interesting, they wouldn't care. We're still technically insects to them in terms of like overall knowledge, in terms of obviously longevity, power, all these things. Like we but that they do find something like not just within that interesting about humans' emotions, but also they begin to realize that there is a like certain level of equality there in terms of their awareness, I guess, be the best way, or sentience.
All right, I'm realizing I did not put in a question about this, so I want to talk a little bit more about the Mind Garden and the Grotesques. Any thoughts? What Grotesques we liked, didn't like?
Thoughts about the garden?
Okay, well, the Grotesques that we really get to meet in this one are Miss Fusspots, who in real life is Dame Okra Carmine, Ninish ambassador to Gored. We get to meet Loud Lad, who in real life is Lars, Viridius's protege and creator of the Mega Harmonium, and Fruitbat, who is Abda, a Porphyrian dancer. And then some others are mentioned.
It's like we don't explored. Actually get to meet them yet.
Yeah.
I mean, the Grotesques are probably the reason why I'd be willing to read the other two books, because I want to meet the other half dragons. I want to know a little more like about their experiences. I want to see what their powers are.
And save that for number 16, Chris.
I'm not looking at notes here. You asked the question. I'm telling you. Okay. In terms of when she's in her garden, Fruitbat.
Yeah. Yeah, and I agree. I really liked Fruitbat. I mean, it definitely feels like that's the intention of we're supposed like. But I did really like this idea of the garden. And
why can't Fruitbat be the love interest? No, I'm just
yeah, like, and one of the things that I think is super interesting with the garden as a whole is the idea that like some of the Grotesques seem to be much more aware of what's like they can almost become like sentient. And so then what does that, because like it's I forget the name of the Grotesque, but there's one that Seraphina had to like shut out. And I think that that's super interesting, because like what did that mean? Like once we find out that the Grotesques are the other half dragons, so then what did that mean for that other half dragon that was becoming aware of what was going on? Like was their power also connected with being able to communicate? Like what did that actually like practically look like in the world? And so like stuff like that definitely like I thought was really interesting, especially like I really liked the idea that as Seraphina saw people in real life, the Grotesques like updated to match how she had perceived them. I thought that was really cool. It's the idea of like seeing like a shadow of the person until you meet them, and then you she now has this connection to the real person.
Oh, yeah, and I guess that's something we kind of forgot to mention as well, is we suddenly find out that the half dragons are actually like powered, like super powered.
Yeah.
And that,
super might be a stretch. They have powers.
I mean, they're superhuman.
They can develop
powers.
them. Yeah, they're
yeah.
the more than we can do.
Yeah. And I think it's really interesting. I think that that's a cool twist of almost like the benefit kind of thing of like, obviously this wasn't a good thing from their world building perspective, but that there is this like 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2 kind of thing. Like they very much are now their own, almost like their own species, rather than halves of humans and dragons.
I would agree that like ultimately, yeah, the half dragons are essentially their own. They're missing like a lot of the major things in this world that make dragons dragons. Obviously, shape shifting is one.
As far as we know.
Yeah.
But
but yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to seeing more. But yeah, I just like the introduction of Fruit Bat is why I like him too. Like, had that interaction, and it had a kind of negative effect on Seraphina, and like through that communication somehow was able to like and willingly just knocked it off. Don't do that again. Okay.
You're kind of out of that. I really liked the idea of the things in the garden affected her real life. And so like once she gets the box of memories from her mom, like if there's a memory that her mom like really wants her to see, it gets hot. It starts to erupt. And like, I thought that was a really interesting way of tying in. And even then tying in with not really knowing what any of it means, of like Fruit Bat is aware enough to know to stop this from happening because it will negatively affect her. And like, and his real person is doing that. Like it's not the grotesque, it's the real human half dragon that is doing that and making that sacrifice. And so like stuff like that I think is really cool, because it's like, well, what is that, I guess is the way to say that. And is this a unique to Seraphina thing with this being like her power, or is it like, or what, just like, yeah, what is going on here? What is this? I have questions.
All right. Did any quotes stand out to you?
So I did the audiobook for this one. So a little bit less than normal because of that. I'm sure Shanine, because this is what happens every time, you'll read quotes and I'll be like, yes, that was one of the ones I liked. But one that I really liked is when I am half lawyer, I always notice the loopholes. I kind of liked that idea. And then there was another one. I think it's an Orma quote. But it is of course, now I can't find it on the list. For future reference, do not underestimate the seductive power of math. It's like, yep.
Yeah, I always forget to write down quotes.
I have a few that stuck out. I'm trying to decide which ones to read. There was one I liked from the scene of the prince's funeral. Seraphina is saying, "They needed heaven's peace. I knew little of saints, but I knew about sorrow and about music as sorrow's surest balm. That was comfort I could give."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I guess I like that. Just connecting heaven and comfort, and you don't have to know a lot about it, but you can still reach out to people in their sorrow.
Mm-hmm. There's another one I was trying to find that, from a more like serious standpoint, I had really liked, but no. Now I cannot find it. Oh, I really liked. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but it's the this conversation, but again between Seraphina and Orma, and Orma is asking like, "Who will kiss you? Who will take care of you?" Like, and she just says, "You never did." Like I said, trying to tease him. "You were more my father to me than my father, but you never did that." He goes, "Someone should. Someone should love you." Like, and I thought that was like, it's a very interesting like parental like side of the like Orma almost like realizing like the things that he should have been better at, even if that's not necessarily how it was presented in the moment of like these are the things that people need, and almost like that. Well, I know you need it, and I'm sorry I didn't do it.
Yeah. All right. Was there anything in the book that surprised you?
I was kind of surprised that the bad guy was actually Imlin. Like, and that it seemed to mostly be him, at least from our region, it seemed to be mostly him acting alone. Like, that definitely seemed weird to me. Because like he's presented as like he was a general, like he perceivably has this like cabal of people that are wanting to overthrow the peace, but in the capital city he's by himself. And so like that kind of surprised me, just that it was that, I don't know if straightforward is the right way to say it, but just that it was just like, yep, it was him the whole time. Like, Orma was right.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think I was surprised that it was kind of like the obvious answer, but I guess when it's coming from a logical dragon.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, one dragon was enough for them to have to rewrite the treaty and potentially go to war with more dragons. So,
yeah. And kind of with that, like, I mean, I did like that the more the mystery becomes more of the who is Imlin, who is his human form, rather than like that really becomes the mystery of the book. And I thought that, again, I was kind of surprised that was actually it. Like that was actually the mystery. But that ties in with what I just said of that it being just him, just doing his thing. Yeah.
Anything surprise you, Chris?
no.
No.
Not that
Nothing
comes to
goes
mind.
over Chris's head.
Nothing.
He would
Yeah,
catch it.
I'd catch it. I mean, nothing like surprised me really. Like in general, I mean, it progressed kind of as a story should. Wasn't like any like real major plot twists, that you can that kind of just weren't set up. Um, yeah.
Right. Did you notice any biblical or theological themes?
So one for me ties in with the idea of the saints. And we get to this point where Seraphina is talking about how like the saints are all like kind of just different in different areas. And so like in some places the saints would look like this, or in others they're like they're holding this thing, but in other regions they're holding a different thing. Things like that. I thought that kind of got me thinking about just the like uh, almost from like a different denomination standpoints, how we all like see different things, but we're all looking at the same thing, if that makes sense. So like we might it's kind of that idea of like the majority of Christian denominations are united on 90% of things, and it's kind of that 10% that's different. And that kind of it just kind of got me going down that thought process for like almost like how we adapt certain stories or things like that to our perspective, if that makes sense. What about you, Shani?
Okay, I have another quote. I didn't think I was going to read it, but I changed my mind. This is at the beginning at Seraphina's, I don't know, was it a baptism, dedication, whatever that was. She was a baby. And then the book falls open to the wrong saint. They pick a new one. Superstitious fakery or not, the Psalter's message was clear. The truth may not be told. Here is an acceptable lie. And yeah, I think lies and truth were a running theme through the whole book. And yeah, I think kind of what we were talking about a bit before is lies for deceit's sake or acceptable lies. Yeah.
I don't have anything specific.
I got another one that I think it's less of like a religious or like a biblical or theological theme, but there's very much that like establishing your own belief within the belief system, where like Seraphina very much has that perspective that's not the normal perspective on the world, and kind of is coming at that belief system. And again, like to Emma's point from earlier, like we don't know a lot about the overall belief system, but she seems to not necessarily be like what we would deem as like an atheist. But she's coming to her own kind of grips and understanding within that system. And so that I think that is, as somebody who like was a youth minister, that's like one of those big things that I would see a lot with people. And I mean, am currently seeing a lot with myself, where it's that idea of like, it's not that like people lose their faith completely, or certain people lose their faith completely, but it's that they come to understand kind of how the pieces fit for their perspective. And then of course we have to, in our situation too, we have to of course then make sure our perspective is biblical and things like that. But so that kind of got me thinking along those lines of just like finding your own faith rather than living out the faith as presented or solely as presented.
I mean, kind of on that similar note, like the does deal a lot with like obviously, like, how would, like, in terms of our world, like, finding another, like, sentient being, how would that impact your faith? And kind of like, I mean, in 40 years, I'm sure humans had, like, obviously, like, I'm sure a portion of their faith was built around the idea that dragons are evil, bad things, and just beasts. And now, you know, but now you're in this peace with them that you have to kind of restructure your faith around. What would that look like? And I think they do a good job with that, although I'd like to see it explored a little more. Just because, I mean, like, even in human history, that's kind of an ongoing thing that we see now, that, when we think of even those within humankind itself, when we think of them as less, we can do some horrendous things in that exploration. So I like it, I like the kind of Star Trek-y things within this, that there was a time where we were at odds, and that was because of lack of understanding, and a lot of it is lack of acknowledgement, ultimately, of the intelligence and capabilities of the other.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm just thinking, like, Seraphina didn't seem like an overly religious character. But I think, especially when it came to music, it kind of took her beyond. Like, there was some scenes and stuff that talked about when she was making music, like, she felt like she could touch the sky, kind of like made her feel like she was flying, and just that, like, there are things in this world that connect us to God or whatever that higher power is in their world. But yeah, those things that take us beyond ourselves. All right, before we get to our fun final questions, anything else that stood out to you?
I like that the dragons have, like, this weird 1940s through 60s concept of mental health. That ultimately, when it goes too far, the ultimate solution is a lobotomy.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought that's one of those things that, again, kind of fitting in with the, like, tying in with, like, Emma's point from earlier about certain things being underexplained. That one really confused me.
I mean, I get it, though.
Yeah.
Like,
again, not that it didn't make sense in the world that this is how they would, but, like, I guess you could say, like, the practicalities of that are what confused me, because they did seem almost, like, flippant about it. But
to me, it's one of those situations where it's like, like, within, especially, like, drawing from, like, our history, that a lot of it is out of ignorance and lack of understanding, and unwilling to kind of explore the actual intricacies and facets of behavioral health. And that's something that the dragons are definitely at. They're just strictly approaching it from a solution oriented, like, emotions bad, solution lobotomy.
Yeah.
It's like, well, they're not self-destructive anymore, so it worked. And that's very much, that 50s, 60s era of, well, we institutionalize them, lobotomize them, they're good kind of situation. And I think that's kind of like, looking at the dragons, that was their approach. Like, it's just like, we don't want those emotions, we don't want those feelings. Those go against the very core of our being, and the excision thereof is the solution. And to them, that was a good thing. And to behavioral health professionals back in that era. That was a good thing. It was just, it's, and especially because they come from that very logical, faceted, background, and that is their essentially their personality. I kind of like, obviously it's bad, but like, I like that is the solution here because it goes very well with their culture.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, would you like to see this as a movie, and who would you cast?
No.
Oh, okay. Why?
Mostly because I don't think it'd be done well. um yeah, I, I I just can't see it being done well. Uh or someone, it's not a big enough story, well known enough to where it necessarily has like a big enough fandom to where there's going to be the outrage for it either. I don't know. I maybe an anime, because I trust anime creators more than anyone. Don't know why. I just do. No. Uh, but there, and in movie form, another thing, because as we mentioned, there's that forbidden love. They're gonna lean too hard into that. It's already a piece I don't like. That's gonna be the point of the movie if they make it one. It's all gonna be Kiggs and Seraphina. Straight up.
So I'll say, like, I think this would be make a fun, like, limited series. Like I say, with, again, not with currently no context of what the rest of the story is. So I don't know what's in the other books, but like I could definitely see this making a good like Netflix style, like 6 to 8 episodes, and that's the story. Um, and probably 6. 6 feels right. But like having that be the take on it, rather than trying to, like, on one end it feels like there's way too much to do well in a movie, and then on the other end it feels like there's definitely not enough for like a normal series. And so but for casting, so I have some, like, maybe some kind of wonky choices, but so my casting for Seraphina would be Blue Hunt, who plays Danny Moonstar in New Mutants. And so and she's also in CW, on in the originals on CW. Apparently, I haven't seen that. And is in Another Life on Netflix. And so I liked her in New Mutants. I mean, New Mutants is indeed a film, but
it's probably one of the better mutant films in a while.
Yeah, no, it's definitely better than Dark Phoenix and Apocalypse, but that's a whole nother podcast. And so yeah, so I really liked her, and I think she would make a fun take for that, like, inquisitive Seraphina. And then and then the person that I thought of, I did not realize had also played Spock, or I'd forgotten, and that's Zachary Quinto, as Orma. I was thinking of him from his role in Heroes, and kind of as that, like, kind of weird villain in Heroes. And I think he would make a very good, like, off the wall Orma. And then also, surprised, Orma is crazy close to Spock, and I think he'd also be good for that, or because of that reason as well. So
like it.
I think he's too big of a name, and that's what's going to make it go wrong.
Too much. I mean, Orma is like one of the three main characters.
But I mean, like, I'm just thinking, like, for like what they did with like Aragon. Like, yeah, they had some good names in that. It's like if you're gonna do it, you kind of just need to throw some unknown names out there. So like Blue Hunt would be, I mean, she's lesser known, so like that's not a bad one.
Yeah, I had to look her up, but I can definitely see her in that role.
Those are the only castings I have. But
no Kicks. No Kicks casting.
Ideally, someone forgettable. Again, I really liked Kids until the end, but
what about a Princess Glazelda casting? I have no idea.
Yeah. What do you think, Shanine?
I don't know. I mean, it'd be like a young adult series. Like, who do the kids like these days? I don't know.
Who's hip with the youths? I do feel like to that point, one of the things that I think is weird is like a lot of the young actors I think of as like Game of Thrones, and it's like, oh, they're all adults now. I'm just thinking of like season 1 to 2, like Maisie Williams, but she's like still looks relatively young, but like would be like I wouldn't necessarily want her to play like Seraphina but just in the sense of like I don't necessarily know that I mean I think she could do it. I think she's a great actress, but like and just maybe in my head isn't how I see that character. But
who's hip? Who's
yeah, who's on the Disney Channel now? Do kids still watch the Disney Channel? Varoth says, I feel like no one who says hip with the youths is hip with the youths. That'd be accurate.
But we're saying it ironically, so that makes us hip with the youths. It's okay as long as you say it ironically. That's how it works.
I don't know. I was picturing Orma as like kind of grandfatherly looking. Everyone who I'm picturing, I cannot think of their name.
And everyone who's played a grandfather and or Santa.
Yes.
Thinking about it, like maybe like the cast of like The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina.
Ooh, yeah.
Just pull the entire cast.
Yeah. Who's the person that plays Sabrina? Kiernan Sipnica. She would make a good Glazelda.
Ooh,
yeah.
I think Jim Broadbent should be Orma.
You guys are throwing names out? I don't know.
You know Jim Broadbent.
I mean, I probably do, but I don't know. Okay. Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, yep.
See? He looks Orma-y to me.
He looks like he would look good with a fake beard.
Now we need to find someone older, though, for the villain.
Maybe like Ben Kingsley.
Yeah. Trying to picture it.
I mean, he just does great at Ben Kingsley. Just does great at playing villains in general. Like, he's one of those that like. Oh man, he's a great actor.
Yeah, I think one of the first things I saw him in was in Tuck Everlasting. That's kind of what I'm picturing him as. That kind of look.
book everlasting. Wow.
Yes.
Big throwback.
Wow.
Oh, man. I don't even want to know how old that movie is now.
2002.
Oh.
It can drink
almost 20 years.
Yeah.
It can drink in the next couple
Canada.
years. Oh, it can drink in Canada. That's right.
Oh, and he plays Gandhi?
Yeah, and the Gandhi
yeah.
movie. Yep, Ben Kingsley does. He did a really good job.
What am I thinking
To Varal's comment, how did Gandhi become a villain? Well, first,
of?
he got into drugs. And then he got hired to record some tapes.
Yeah. And he got plastic surgery to look like the Mandarin.
Yep. Then he nuked the Russians in Civ 4. Yep.
All right. So, speaking of wild speculation, if you were to read more in this series, what are your predictions and hopes for the rest of the story?
I hope they find another love interest.
Yes. You know, Kiggs, like, if Kiggs just happened to die in battle honorably, and then we found another love interest. Or no love interest, you know? Seraphina, you live your life.
It's like, yeah, I mean, that's the thing is, like, I feel like so often we ruin really good female characters with the love interest. Like, the way she was talking in that chapter, I was just like, really?
Yeah.
It's like all your hope is on this relationship right now, and I don't like it. Your hope should be that you're going to live in a world where you can just straight up be yourself. Because that's my hope for you. Like, I just really look forward to seeing, like, meeting the other and seeing their power, like, seeing what their abilities are, meeting all the half dragons.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I kind of just picture a mutant crew.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's definitely on my list too, meeting all the grotesques, and especially Janula, the creepy stare into my eyes one.
Yes.
Like, what's her deal?
What's your deal? Like, I hope that's the first question. What's your deal, yo?
I have several questions. Number one, how dare you? I want to see them go to an actual, like, city, air quotes, city of dragons. Like, I definitely want to see what that looks like in this world.
Because, yeah, right now all we're seeing are dragons in a human city.
Right.
What would a dragon city look like?
Yeah.
Can dragons still, like, do dragons still live in their own cities? Because were the cities developed for their actual dragon forms, or they're developed for...
That definitely seems like one that'd be really interesting, especially getting into, like, now that there's a war going on, like presumably they're not in human form all the time, and they wouldn't be in human form in a dragon city, but, like, you could also see them doing that for various reasons. And so, like, I think it'd be really interesting to see, like, dragons trying to sneak around in human form kind of thing, or getting a look at, like, the culture of humans that want to live in a dragon city.
So the dragons set up their cities as a social experiment for humans?
Yeah. Like,
let's see how
play us some music.
I'm intrigued.
Yes.
Roth does mention that he feels like 80% of male characters are given love interest and 99% of female characters are given love interests. Yeah. And I think the goal of the love interests, like, I feel like for female characters, the point is the love interest. Whereas for male characters, it's a motivating factor. More often. I definitely agree with that though, but it's like stop.
Yeah. This is a pet peeve of mine in another book that I am reading right now.
The love interest?
The love interest between the two main characters. The two main characters are the least interesting characters in this entire series.
Oh no.
And they are the worst when they're together. Like, if you could just be miserable and apart for the whole thing, that would be great.
Yeah, I'd like you more.
Yeah. Well, because the woman is like powerful and a leader until she's like with her guy, and then she's like super stupid and super incapable of doing anything. And I'm like, really? Really?
She's flustered. And that's why I'm worried, because like Seraphina is an awesome, capable character. But she's literally like the end of this book literally sets up Kiggs as her endgame. I'm just like, if that's your endgame, it's like literally, it's like I'm not sure I can think about anything else if I'm around you. Blah, blah, blah.
That's why he needs to die honorably in battle. So that way he can just be removed from the equation and she can go live her best life as this awesome half dragon.
Yeah. She needs to meet herself another nice half dragon.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really was expecting it to be one of the Grotesques.
Right?
Like, I thought we were setting up Fruit Bat.
Yeah,
and then
it
turned out to be very young.
Yeah.
It can work in a few years.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's 12. It's like, okay.
It's only 4 years.
4 years.
Once they're older, that's not weird.
When she's 22, he's 18. It works.
Yeah.
Worked for Padme.
Did it.
Rip.
Okay.
Suddenly Star Wars.
Something else that I really want to find out in the rest of the series is the story behind the heretic. Like, they hinted at it several times, and I'm so curious. Yeah. Like, why was he a saint? Why is he not anymore? What happened? I'm so curious.
Yeah.
What does it have to do with Seraphina?
Yeah, that's one of those like plot points that definitely feels like it was intended to be a comeback for the sequel, and we'll get this information, that kind of thing.
Or it's just like, yeah, it was a mentioned kind of thing, but we're never actually going to approach it again. So we're asking, hey, Rachel Hartman, be like Tolkien and write literally just a book of lore.
I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I remember specifically hoping for in a sequel. I want to see the Dracomachia, whatever that was, the dragon fighting technique. I definitely want to see that. Like, we kind of get we get it teased with like getting to see some of their training regiment and things like that.
Oh, you want to see more of the knights? Yeah, you actually want to see the knights.
Yeah, I want to see them be knights. Like, that's definitely one that, like, especially of course now that we're at war, like we can kind of have that. Whereas, we kind of get to see that, even at like that social implications of them like being banished, but now, oh, we need you. Please come back and train people. Like that kind of thing.
Like, I have a feeling that's something you will get to see in part 2. Because it was initially titled Dracomachia. Now it's Shadow Scale.
Did not know
that. I'm on the wiki.
I am as well, but I hadn't clicked in the Shadow Scale. So I'm trying to avoid tainting my opinions by looking at what was actually in the second book.
Well, when you mentioned that, I was like, I was curious.
right. Any final thoughts on Seraphina?
Needs more math.
Overall, I really liked it. I kind of said that throughout that, but I really liked this take, and I like that it does feel like it's planting seeds for other ideas to come later. I think there's a lot of like storytelling that can kind of fall into that space where it's again kind of use the illustration from before, where it's not like here's a chapter to have a chapter about this thing, but here's an idea and we're going to try to tie this idea into the story later at a more important part to the character or to the central narrative. And so there's definitely a lot that I think it left me wondering, well, what does this actually look like? So I like that.
Yeah, I'm definitely definitely looking forward to possibly reading the others. Maybe, if I have time. We'll see. But it's definitely a consideration. I like that it isn't a traditional fantasy book. And that's really kind of what captured me, like in reading through the whole thing. And so I'm excited to see what else she did.
Mm-hmm.
And just to get some more of my favorite characters.
Yeah. What about you, Cameron? Do you think you'll read more?
Yeah, I definitely want to at least read Shadow Scale. I was doing like a little bit of looking around, and like I guess the third book is more of like a side story. It's apparently tied in
prequel
with her, because it's like tied in with well, because there's the audition, which is the prequel.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And then there's Shadow Scale. Then there's another one that's like about Seraphina's half sister. And so it's like still in the world, but it's not about Seraphina. And so, but I really enjoyed Rachel Hartman's like writing style. And so I could definitely see myself like reading more of her works.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Oh, it's only a 2-part series, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess
sequel
both,
and conclusion is Shadow Scale. I'm like, what?
Yeah. And I guess like I don't remember if I saw this, but I think that
best things comes in threes, Rachel Hartman. If you're gonna be successful in the fantasy
other
realm.
book is supposed to be another 2-parter, and so I kind of like that. Of like, this is the intention of the story. This is what we're gonna fit it into, rather than just having the kind of going into our conversation on the normal podcast from the other night about finales. It's like seems like most shows that have really good finales had the finale in mind when they were telling the story. And so I kind of like that idea of we're not going to do 3 books just to do 3 books. We have a 2-part story, like that kind of thing.
Just saying, best fantasy series are in trilogies. And some get ruined by a 4th. Looking at you, Christopher Paolini.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. I think I'm interested in reading the sequel for sure. Just want to find out those things.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Watch, we're going to read the sequel and we're going to be pissed.
Probably. 50-50.
50-50.
Like, we only met 2 other Grotesques. What the junk?
No, I need a 3rd book.
That would be upsetting.
Told you the best things come in trilogies. No one listens to Chris.
No one listens to Chris.
Okay, final verdict. Do you recommend Seraphina?
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
I mean, it's definitely on the New York was a New York Times bestseller for a reason. And so, yeah, I definitely recommend it.
Yes, me too. All right. our next book club will be on May 27th. And we are reading Neverwhere by Neil Gaiman, and I'm super pumped. This is on my favorites shelf.
What's this about? Like, what's the overall synopsis? As someone who has never heard of this before.
It takes place in London Underground. There is a whole fantastical world underground, underneath London. And there's murder.
Oh. Murder. So we could almost just recycle our literally our triplicate again. Just and even just leave dragon math in there just because.
Yeah, it's just because there's always gonna be dragon math from now on.
Sure. But no, if we thought Seraphina was unique, we've got a whole nother thing coming with Neverwhere. Oh man, I love Neil Gaiman. I'm so excited.
And this is an older book too.
It is a bit older.
Because I read it in like 2006. I don't know when it was actually published. Pretty sure I was in high school when I read it. Time to find a collector's edition.
I do not believe Faroth that this is one of his first.
One of his first?
One of his first, but not the first.
Originally published in 96. Dang.
Maybe I'm wrong.
I'm trying to go to his wiki.
I thought not, though.
First novel was Good Omens.
It was in 90.
Yep.
So first on his own then, or?
Possibly, yeah. I don't actually own this book, though.
All right. Well, we will be reading that. Get ready for May 27th. We are First Geek 411, and you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Come join our Discord server. Check out our Redbubble store. Email us at 1stgeek411@gmail.com. Watch live on Twitch every Monday night and find the videos on our YouTube. Rate and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. Check out the show notes on our website for, 1geek411.com. I'm Shanine. You can find me on Instagram at Hoot and Howl Tales, TALES, and Twitter at the Hoot and Howl.
And I'm Cameron. You can find me as Humar Whittle.
And I'm Chris, and you can find me everywhere as Not So Foreign. That's NOTSO4EIGN.
Read a book.
Wash your hands.
I love you. And do some math.
There's an illustrated edition. Ooh.